We are live, coming to you from San Francisco, California. It's the Apple Byte Extra Country podcast with your host, Mr. Brian Tong.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Guess what? You guys all tuned in. We had some issues with our iTunes podcast for the pre-show, the preview of WWDC. You're here for the WWDC recap show. We're going big here. And when I talk about big, we're talking about our senior editor. I call him editor extraordinaire. Scott Stein in the house joining us for this entire podcast. Are you ready for this, Scotty?
Oh yeah, I'm totally ready. You've even got a swivel chair.
Oh, that adds like, is that an augmented reality live stream?
This is my VR chair. You gotta have swivel in your VR chair.
Absolutely. So everyone, just obviously the orders of business when we start this show off. This is a complimentary piece to our Apple Byte video podcast that comes out weekly. Here we get a really deep dive, get in depth, and talk to you guys and gals as well as the experts here at CNET. But in case you want to be a part of the show, because that's what it's all about, you can always call us. It's our voicemail system at 1-800-616-2638. I think there's a lot of you that have thoughts and feelings about what just happened. We'll talk about that, but we also want to hear from you, so make sure you call in, your name, where you're from, and what you want to talk about. But let's just jump into this, Scott. You were there on site. I think that the way that mainstream media has been covering this event is always kind of a little different than how the tech media covers it. Of course, there's a lot of excitement about the HomePod, and we're going to kind of use that as our launching point. The HomePod. Tell me, you were there. You did get to see it, correct?
Yeah, I got to see it. I got to listen to it.
And that's what I want to hear about. You know, a lot of people aren't privy to being able to get into these demo rooms and see it. Can you explain to us exactly what they even showed? Because it doesn't feel like they obviously, when they announced it, they positioned it as a music speaker. They really weren't trying to focus as much on the smart aspects of it. Maybe it's not baked yet. That's fine. But what did they actually show you on site?
Really, just a speaker demo. They completely didn't do anything smart with this thing. I mean, you know, in terms of smart functions. So this was a chance just to listen to it. And if you didn't already get the message on stage that they were focusing on music for this and how it sounds, that was completely the focus. So it was
Hey Siri.
You're in a room and you are sitting down listening to 5 songs. And Apple showed it next to Sonos Play 3 and Amazon Echo. So that was interesting. They were actually competing products to listen against, which is really not often the case. In that demo, and I'm not an audio reviewer, so I want like Ty Pendlebury in there or someone, you know, I want their ears. But even they said it's hard to tell in a contained demo. You can't really judge what happened to make that experience occur. But it sounded really good. Sure, that demo was really crisp, booming, and they were trying to show that it worked in 360 degrees, that if you walked around the room, it sounded good from different angles, whereas the Play 3 up against the wall and the Amazon Echo sounded flatter and or tinnier. Echo sounded much different. Sonos was fine, but it didn't have the same 360 sound. But, you know, what does that mean, and how does that, you know, how is that actually going to feel later? But they are showing that this is, and they also played not just one HomePod, but 2 HomePods. So I got to listen to 2 in the same room. And that's one of the pitches they're making is don't get 1, get 2, to set them up as speakers, multi-HomePod your house. And they basically act as stereo speakers. They split the music and do more of a surround effect, like you would with, you know, putting home speakers in your house for anything.
Hey, Scott, so here's the thing, right? It's always interesting when you're at a keynote because, you know, there's always kind of some level of the way that Apple shapes this, and you know, sometimes you're around the buzz, but you know, I can't ignore the fact when they're demoing this, it's almost like, oh yeah, by the way, 2 HomePods are $700.
Yeah.
And when you talk about that, just from the competitive landscape, we know that Apple charges a premium. You know, my guess before the keynote would be that, oh, it'd be like $249. The Amazon Echo is $179. The Google Home is $129. Instead, they went $349. And so it seems, are they, when you've been to so many of these events, I don't want to say are they still kind of, they are in this bubble of their own world, but to kind of just brush it off like, get 2, it's $700. Like, it's almost like, are they paying attention to what's going out there? We know they have a high-end customer that will buy that stuff. We get calls and my emails about that all the time. But you can't ignore that $700 for 2 speakers is completely out of the ballpark of what is actually happening in the industry from a standpoint of speakers/smart speakers.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they were clearly playing in like a Sonos space or like Bang& Olufsen sort of territory. This felt like that type of a demo versus anything like Amazon Echo or Google Home. This is not, and also those are on sale a lot. You get it for $100, and you can get them as basically stocking stuffers. Even if you're not fully on board with what a smart speaker does, at $100 you play around with it, and at $349 that's well out of that range. So you're not going to just play around with it probably for that price. And that's where I think this is a very different proposition. And it's bigger than Google Home. The Google Home was not in the demo, interesting. So I don't know why, but Google Home is really small, and the HomePod is not small. It kind of feels like a cantaloupe.
That's a great, we've seen a lot of, obviously the internet reacted to it. It was like, oh, it looks like a roll of toilet paper. It looks like a cat scratching post. I thought it looked just like a big giant marshmallow that I would want to, toast. But
yeah.
The other thing that you mentioned is how they positioned it, and they clearly were focusing on this is a music speaker, and then maybe it's because they don't have all the smart functionality baked in. The biggest thing that I was expecting, and we had talked about this before, of what Apple could do here at WWDC, is just talk about their vision for Siri and their platform, and it just really didn't happen. There were nods to Siri getting a little better, but there was no actual real deep dive of how it's smarter, why it's smarter, what things can it actually do. Was that a missed opportunity, or is it something that you think, okay, I'll give you a chance to talk about it more in September, but if we don't talk about it anymore in September, it's got to be kind of a red flag of, as the industry is moving in that direction, where does Apple really stand?
When I think about that whole show, I actually expected a lot more talk about Siri in general. And I feel like for all we were expecting a lot of talk about Siri, I don't think it was talked about all that much at WWDC, and not enough. And hey, I'm holding the air freshener here, the Google Home. I've got it, but look, it's so small. Yeah. This is like a really cute little thing, and you could just put this somewhere and not worry about it. But this is the market that Apple needs to think about. What are they doing to make their thing smarter? And I think there's a lot that needs to be addressed with that. Sure, how apps hook into it, how Siri is going to listen better. They better have a separate event diving into all that. I don't know if that can be shoehorned into share the stage with an iPhone event, because that sounds like a lot. Maybe it's a separate event, and it's coming out in December. So, and for Apple, sometimes a month means like the very end of the month. So, was December going to be like December 31st? I have no idea, but it's usually they tend to, the window tends to be a little bit later. I don't know if that's anecdotally. I really want to know a lot about what it's going to do, how it's going to be aware in your home. That's an interesting part of it too, is how it's meant to be spatially aware and understand where the other one is, or even, they didn't explain how, but how it understands what's going on in your room. Is it sending out, is it infrared or sound waves, or what is it doing to map your room out and push the audio in a direction that it sees makes the most sense. So that's pretty interesting as tech. There are others that I think have dabbled in that, but that that kind of remains to be seen. That was really not explained.
What is the media's feeling around it? Because when you're there, everyone knows that they're behind Amazon Echo, they're behind the Google Home. And when Apple talks about it, is it almost like, I don't want to say it's tongue in cheek, but are the reporters kind of like, okay, you guys have to admit that you're not there yet, but they don't admit that? Is there almost a weird tension or thing that is just there while they're talking about this, and you guys are like, you guys are really behind still?
I think we're just waiting for some of those things to show up, and when Apple is going to Applify the solution.
Yeah.
So I think there's, when you see VR being mentioned on stage, you go, okay, VR is here. Apple is finally addressing VR. The same thing with AR. I like the direction that they were choosing with AR. I feel like it's almost like Google Cardboard. They're trying to make it much more accessible, and I think it's a smart move. But yeah, you do wait for like machine learning. There was like machine learning drinking game online, and before, how many times can you mention it? You also get numbed out when you start hearing machine learning, because what is it? It sounds like an 80s dance craze. What is the machine learning, craft work. You know, it's very. What does that mean for people?
Exactly.
And it means like 8 different things. There's a billion ways you can apply, more than 8. You can apply so many different ways that machine learning does things. It's really like programming. You know, it's like that doesn't really explain what it does at the end. So I do think that there is a question of that. On the other hand, Apple will also. I'm always interested that press sometimes even seems more optimistic about some of the directions, like the iPad introducing computing features. That's a whole other thing we can get into. The iPad, because I have a few distinct thoughts on that.
Well, you know what? We'll transition over that. I do want to talk a little bit just quickly, since you did mention it earlier here, about the augmented reality, push for Apple. I thought it was really fascinating because we've seen demos like that before, but then all of a sudden, again, it shows how powerful the muscle, the ecosystem, the reach that Apple has. When once they show this, you're like, holy crap! You have all these devices on the market. You won't need to buy any single bit of additional hardware to enjoy these experiences. And developers obviously are smart enough to be thinking, hey, the platform is there, the app store is there, the devices are there. It's time for me to finally develop for the iOS platform. When they touted they're instantly, the largest AR app platform, I'm like, they absolutely are. And it's smart, just from a business standpoint.
Yeah, and they also can, so as compared to Google, because I was thinking, well, why isn't Google doing like a AR toolkit in Android? And I think the answer is that Apple just has a much more contained hardware platform. And they can say just A9 and A10 chips that they can optimize graphically for it. And I think that's why Google had to make a Tango phone, among other things. And that same thing with Daydream, where only certain phones get Daydream VR, because there were just so many Android phones and so many Android solutions that they can't optimize for particular things unless they create a cutoff. So Apple at least has that advantage. And it's smart because then you have a lot of people using it. We're already using AR apps between Snapchat, Pokemon Go, whatever. And they're basically saying, okay, we know that everyone's making these things anyhow. Let's just make them better and more consistent. I think they're trying to create like a core framework and thinking, so that like maybe down the road, if they're thinking about other types of things, that could start being set up now. But it's beginning. That demo with the lamp, what I thought was really cool. It's like, it looked better than, I got to look at Microsoft's View mixed reality, which was AR through Windows machine, and they had that at their education event. That was okay, but it was a little more like pop up and a little more a little bit more janky. It didn't look as polished because, again, I don't think it was as graphically optimized from what I saw. But I guess it was like an early peak. But I think it's good. I think it's not like rocket science. I don't think it's something that's really all that different than other things that are out there. But bringing it together, I'm not an engineer. What am I? It might be rocket science. I have no idea. But such a dismissive thing for me to say. It's not rocket science.
Come on, Scott, you're such a jerk.
It's not rocket science. I mean, anybody could do it. I don't know. But I do think it looked really good. I think for a lot of people, this is going to be what AR is. And so it's a smart move for Apple with that. VR, though, it looks like they're just trying to make creative toolkits for high-end platforms. And it's like, if you're making your big Star Wars experience at ILM, or if you work in VR design, sure, but they're not even looking at like games or the average person using VR.
The other thing is, and as we talk about this AR VR platform and how Apple is really sinking their teeth into it, they showed off the iMac Pro, and obviously it's going to be a beast. And obviously they're like, look, you can develop VR on here. Our Metal 2 platform is going to be able to help support that as well. So we have the tools in place. But it reminds me a lot of, hey, look, people don't think of the Mac as a gaming platform. People have already started their development and their workflow on the PC for VR development. Although they have the hardware there, yes, it's a build it and they will come. I'm really curious to see how many developers are just going to be all of a sudden, okay, we're just going to go to the Mac exclusively and develop here now. When HTC Vive, Oculus, they've established at least a framework for years. And will those developers and those companies all of a sudden want to pivot? What will that iMac Pro be that compelling that they want to do that? Do they want to actually, if they even looked at the Mac platform, wouldn't they maybe even want to look at the actual future Mac Pro modular design, whatever that is, instead of say, hey, we're going to go all gung-ho on a $5,000 plus iMac Pro? I think I see what they're trying to build there and lay the foundation, but as usual, right, hardware, software goes hand in hand. I don't know if developers are going to flock over the iMac. I haven't seen even any stories of developers saying we're definitely going to give the Mac a try now for our VR, AR development. At least VR, let's say VR development.
Yeah, I totally agree. First of all, there was that, they've acknowledged that there's a future Mac Pro that'll be more upgradable, and that you'd want to wait for that. If you are developing VR, and you're really in the industry, you're probably you've got to be using Windows thing for all of its ability to experience and develop and the graphics flexibility. There were some tweet or some comments that had said that this is more for people who already use Macs. And I think I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the iMac, they're trying to say that here's a solution. Should you want to use Macs, we're going to be there. We're going to offer this, and it's available now versus later. But I agree. How many people are going to pick that? I don't know. I think it's trying to provide a solution for high-end Mac users who want to also dabble in creating VR and have a machine that's capable. But that's definitely a subset. I don't know if you're buying something that's $5,000 and it's not upgradable. I don't know.
Right?
That sounds rough.
It doesn't sound like the most attractive proposition. And yes, you can buy one potentially with an 18-core Xeon processor-based iMac Pro. But again, it still won't be expandable once you buy it, right? I mean, it won't be truly expandable. The other thing that I saw when we were watching this keynote... Oh, go ahead.
Then it just becomes the one that your kids use.
Like my iPad.
The $10,000 18-core Xeon iMac.
Go upstairs and do your homework on the Mac Pro.
Hey, Minecraft looks amazing on that iMac Pro. Come on, let's not discredit that, okay? But the other thing about the iMac
crazy.
Pro, when I saw the announcement, the first thing that I just, when you have like what I call the sniff test, when I watched it, I was like, wow, this was their actual vision for their next Pro machine. We know the Mac Pro, the trash can, the cylinder design hasn't been touched, and they had acknowledged that they made a boo-boo. But it's really interesting because the iMac Pro that we saw today is really what they believed for at least the past 3 years, that this was going to be their next new Pro machine. When all of a sudden this April, they're like, actually, yeah, we realize we're alienating our Pro users that want expandability and customization. But I don't want to call it a lame duck product because it's going to appeal to a certain audience, but that's what they thought would be their next Pro machine. I thought it was kind of interesting. Like, it's almost seemed like a relic of the past of their thinking being put on stage because they still have to. But I'm really curious to see how many people are going to actually buy the iMac Pro with that idea of a Pro machine. I think the value is still there. The price point is there, but that is what they felt was their Pro machine. What do you think about that? Did you feel that at all either?
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I would say I'd want to wait and, I'd kick myself if there was a new Mac Pro that was more like the thing I'd need. So, if it's launching at a weird time, December or end of year, when is it coming out? It's like end of.
They said December-ish, I think.
Yeah, so it's an odd time, and I don't know. I mean, you might just want to wait.
That's what I'm saying.
What else
I totally agree.
Yeah, I don't know. Meanwhile, I guess the Mac Pro became the HomePod.
Exactly.
That thing looks just like a Mac Pro.
Do you know what the best part about? I don't know if you've seen the videos, but if you look at the original Mac Pro launch videos, like, when they have their sexy teaser videos, I kid you not, the angles, the way they tilt it, the way they shoot it is exactly, you could literally swap them out for each other, right?
It's just missing the hole in the center. The hole is now the Siri
the glow, the Siri glow, right?
But it's like practically, it's smaller, but I mean, it really is like very much in that zone.
We pulled out on the Apple Byte, our one of our prototypes that we stole from their headquarters, and we literally wrapped a Mac Pro in fishnet stockings.
That's great.
So that's exactly to your point, right?
Make your own.
Make
Can
your-
have a Mac Pro looking thing for $349.
Now let's jump to the iPad Pro. People that listen to this show, I should stop saying it. No, I'm a big fan of the iPad Pro. I know you have your thoughts on it. I felt that it was, to me, the star of the show from a standpoint of, I know that the Surface Pro as a hybrid device that has a desktop OS and a tablet OS can do more. But what I really liked, and maybe it feels like it's a year too late, but what I really loved about the iPad Pro is it feels like its own thing. Like the way that you're interacting with it, you can't do that with a Surface, although, yes, the Surface can technically do more. I liked how they finally made it a beast of its own, and really, I don't even know if they should call this iOS 11 on the iPad. It's finally its own thing, and I applaud them for that, but it does feel like it came a little late, especially with tablet sales just continuing to decline. I don't know if it's going to give them a spike. I pre-ordered mine right after the announcement because, again, I am the biggest iPad Pro freak, but I'd love to hear your thoughts because you clearly have some about them.
Yeah, so I have been looking forward to the iPad Pro getting an update for a while and iOS being updated for the iPad. So I thought a lot of those updates, when I wrote like a preview wish list piece, a lot of those got met. The dock, the file system, the added modes for presentation. I think those are great. I like the fact that it's going to be more pencil based, where you can instantly take notes, do handwriting search. I think those are all great moves. And looking at the 10.5, it's definitely a nice screen enhancement. My only question is, if you have a 9.7-inch iPad Pro, I don't think you would need to upgrade because it's a modest screen gain. You are getting processor, but who knows? I mean, it's not clear, and right now it's not clear how iOS 11 will make it, great compared to the 9.7 or the previous generation iPad Pro, the 12.9 from late 2015. Maybe that one is great. You get that on sale. So I don't know. That is a thought. Is would the OS make it great? Would you want the new one no matter what? So you have to kind of measure that out. But I think it's great. I'm disappointed by the fact that it still feels a little too much like iOS for iPhone. I agree. It needs to be its own thing. I think they should just keep moving away, get away from the grid of apps, be comfortable making a bold move, because I don't think it's going to be that crazy a change. People will get used to it at this point, and it would help present more things on screen. You have a lot of screen space, plus accessories. They did not announce new accessories for this.
That's the first thing that shocked me. Not only that, right? So I pre-ordered this. So I have an original iPad Pro. I was always mad and jealous about the True Tone screen. I love this whole 120 hertz refresh rate, and the fact that the pencil is going to work better. Much to your point earlier about, will someone upgrade? I think if you're someone that really does use the pencil artistically, or how you use your iPad Pro today, you should, if you're thinking about upgrading, I think it's worth it. But if you're just using your iPad like you're using the iPad the same way you did 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I don't know if I don't think it's worth upgrading, right? It's
right.
If it's a
slate, I think a lot of it. Yeah.
So, but to your point about accessories, so I buy this iPad Pro. I'm like, what are these new cool, what are the cool things I can get? And I don't know if you saw this, but they're selling a freaking case, like a leather case for the pencil, just like a sleeve specifically for the pencil, for
pencil sleeve.
Yeah, just like a cover for the pencil for $29. And I'm like, wait, okay, let me look out and see what else they have. Now they have a full leather sleeve that has a little slot for you to put your pencil in. It's like $149. I'm like, but then it completely exposes the iPad when you need to take it out. Like, I'm sorry, I kind of need to have it protected on the backside, which was then weird to me because they completely got rid of that silicone rear case for the iPad. They don't have any of them online. They have third-party ones, but not an Apple one. And that's
really?
all they accept. Yeah,
really?
So that hard shell kind of Apple branded silicone, that's not available for the 12.9, and it's not on there. When you search for it, that it's not there.
Is this the one here? I'm just trying to search
if you go to store.apple.com, and then they'll be like, you can go to iPad accessory.
I've used the silicone back, and it's very useful.
Yeah, it's just standard, right? But then what about the smart connector, man? I mean, Are they completely ignoring the fact that they put that on the iPad?
Let's talk about the smart connector because I was asking Apple about this, and it's the same technology in the new smart connector as the last one. You would have heard about it if it was upgraded.
Of course.
Uh, right now, the smart connector allows two things: keyboards and charge docks, like to allow charging throughput. And Apple and Logitech are the only companies I know of that are even making anything. Like Logitech is like the kind of exclusive third-party partner for it, or I don't know how it's being arranged, but there are no other companies, and I'm sure others have been wanting to. I would think no, there are no other accessories out there that I've seen, and it's super limited. And why? What else can it do? You should be able to drive a trackpad, which
Sure.
I would love to see a trackpad.
I'd love that.
Whether or not Apple sees a need, it's like, of course, you could have certain apps support it, and you could edit, and that would be worth it for people. Or a dock that would do other things. I don't know. Just it is strange. Like the whole idea of that was meant to be a modularity, and there is very little in terms of options. And Apple's own smart case, the keyboard cover, is the same. It's okay. I like Logitech's better. It's much more lap friendly. It's backlit. It types better. And so I was surprised that Apple didn't upgrade their keyboard and take a chance at doing something a little new. Maybe add backlighting at least. Maybe it's not powerful enough to, but no, it is. Logitech says backlighting. Of course, it's powerful enough. Yeah, you could have made it backlit, some cool glowing keys, whatever. It's just so strange to me that you had this new product and this big design and accessories were not part of it that transformed the iPad. And that's like the one remaining thing that prevents me from using it as a real laptop replacement. That and certain software things. But that's usually the thing that holds me back.
Yeah, and I bought the smart keyboard for the iPad Pro 12.9 inch originally, but I returned it literally maybe 2 days later because I hated how it felt. It doesn't even feel good. When you compare the Apple branded keyboard to, let's say, the Microsoft Surface keyboard, it's not even close. Like It's the way it just feels, the feedback, the push. And so, I did like the Logitech one, but it's a little thicker for me. I want them to give me a thin feeling sleeve type, nice responsive keyboard. But that appears to be too hard for them,
Why could they not have done the 12-inch? They've developed this super small butterfly keyboard mechanism for the Mac Pros and 12-inch MacBook. You can't put that on a case and offer that. It's so strange to me. Like that's what Microsoft did. They should have had two variations at least, the soft one and a hard one. That's the minimum you could do. And then the maximum is to rethink some of this stuff and think about a new solution. When is that going to happen? It's such a slow, the piece I wrote about it, was exactly that I felt like this is a gradual evolution. And it seems like we're just going to have to, that's the way it's going to be. But it's super frustrating because as much as I like where the software is going, it reminds me of iOS 9. They had good updates for the iPad, and then iOS 10, they had no updates for the iPad, or almost none. And then iOS 11, they're doing updates for the iPad. Does that mean they're going to skip another year, and then you're going to see it later? It just feels a little glacial, and I think it needs to be happening more aggressively.
This leads me to another question that I've always felt for a while now, especially after Apple put all their apples, in the basket for the Apple Watch. Does it feel like Apple is spread too thin because they're doing just too many things now? That they've lost kind of some of the focus to bring some of that level of polish, or you used to feel like, hey, this is a solution. They've got all this. They're focusing on this. We see it year after year. But to your point, it's like, okay, iOS 11 finally gets the new tweaks. It's like a 2-year cycle just across the board of a lot of their things now.
Yeah, and so right before the event, I remember the one thing I got to say was I was looking for synthesis for the keynote. I don't think we had that.
Nope.
At the keynote, there was no grand unified theory of Apple, and maybe they feel there can't really be one. But Yeah, I agree. I mean, that whole style of presentation, which was like, we've got 6 things to talk about, and so let's go. We got to hurry. We got to hurry. Um, it felt like we were already rushing and to keep up with all the points, as opposed to breathing and
Yep.
saying, what is the one thing we want to take away? What is the one idea? And it sounds like Apple has got a lot of work in a lot of different areas they're trying to accomplish, pushing into a lot of areas that are going to matter in the future: AR, VR, um, still wearable tech and health. Some of them are very interesting, and AI and machine learning, but it is all over the place, it feels like, when you hear about it.
Hmm.
And you wonder, the classic thing is, for instance, when you're at home with your products, okay, Siri works one way on my iPhone, it works another way on my Apple TV, it works another way on the watch.
Hmm.
On the iPhone, I have some apps that take advantage of 3D touch, some apps that take advantage of Siri, some apps that iMessage. You don't know which are going to be which. And there's still such a wide open area. I remember app developers in the past were feeling like they really had to make choices between, do I support this? Do I support this? Because you can't do them all. I think Apple is offering so many options to explore that I wonder about what's going to happen, because do you support Apple Watch? Do you support this part of Apple Watch? Do you support this part of iPad? It's kind of never ending, and it doesn't feel like there's a clear hierarchy and it should have started with Siri, and maybe it still
Totally.
will for the iPhone. But when are they going to announce that? When are they going to address that?
Well, that's what's, to the casual observer, to the tech fan, to the tech reporter, to media, it's it's not like this is hard for them to figure out. Everyone wants to know what they're doing in that space, and if they really don't have anything to show off or to tell a story, like I think about, yeah, it may not be as sexy, but at Google's I/O, they told the story of what they were doing with AI, how they were building it, what improvements they've done from year A to B or whatever. But they told us a story, and this WWDC, the first thing as we were watching, I'm like, this feels really rushed. There is no storytelling. To get us maybe at least informed and also a little more invested in, okay, this is why they're doing it. There's none of that. It's just iOS has so many features that they didn't talk about that I would have thought might have been interesting, but because they were so jam-packed, they just went through maybe 5 or 6 real fast. They showed off Mac OS Sierra. It was like, da-da-da-da-da. And there was no reason or rhyme to be like, look, this is where we're going. This is why we're doing this. They couldn't even spend 5 minutes on something like that. And so it just feels like, do they really know where they're going? And because it doesn't seem like to us that they're telling us that, other than product, WWDC. And at the same time, I know there's workshops at WWDC. I didn't even feel like this keynote was even really truly catered to the developers that much. A little bit of showing the AR kit, but we've seen other demos where they've gotten a little nitty gritty because it's a developers conference. Developers get no access to what they're doing with Siri or with the HomePod. I just think that even hearing you and I talk about it, they're in a lot of different directions, and they haven't set some sort of clear path that we can all be like, okay, we're on board with this.
Oh, he dropped off.
Oh, no. Scotty dropped
Oh,
off.
hang on. He's calling back.
Okay, he's calling us back in a second.
Here he is.
Scott, I don't know how much you heard of that or not.
I don't know what happened. I was thrown into the abyss. I didn't hear it.
How much did you not hear?
A fair amount. Everything I talked to after Siri, I didn't hear. I said, especially Siri, and then maybe the Siri gods punished me.
Well, that's
Cortana punished me.
Oh, you're saying after you spoke, it cut off?
Yeah.
Oh, so you didn't even hear me talk at all, huh?
It was like dropping the mic.
Oh, you just meant boom. Well, you know what? Well, ultimately, I just said everything about their keynote felt rushed. They didn't give us any type of storytelling, and Google explains their AI, how they're evolving it, what's happened before, why they're doing this, and we're not getting any of that. It was like product, and we know we want to see a direction of what they're thinking, and they're not telling us that.
Well, I think also it's the inevitable effect of, for a while now, a couple of years, they had not been having products at the developer conference. Mm-hmm. They would say, okay, we're not going to crowd this developer conference with products. We're going to focus on software. This year, they introduced a ton of products. And then the flip, there was literally how many, like 8 or whatever, there are the Macs, the iMac Pro, the iPad, HomePod. That's like a whole product event.
Yeah.
So when you do that in a 2-hour span, then yeah, you even have less time to talk about software and strategy. I think that was the biggest reason why it felt so rushed.
Yeah. So, we could talk about this for hours. I think that we want to just get to some of the phone calls, and then we'll wrap things up. Are you good with that, Scott?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see where we're at with Apple Byte Nation. And again, for all of you listening to Extra Crunchy, you can always call us at 1-800-616-2638, and that is the number to get yourself on the show. And how are we doing with voicemails, Mr. Beecham?
Yeah, we got a lot of good calls, and we got some positives about WWDC, and we got some negatives about WWDC.
Oh,
so
very
we're gonna play
good.
both and see what everyone had to say. Here we go.
All right.
Hey guys, it's Ryan from Sacramento. I have to say that yesterday's developers conference was one of the best that we've seen in a while, and that's exciting. My question today is about the smart speaker that we saw. I, like many other people, already have an Amazon Echo. I have the Dot, and being in the Apple ecosystem, I'm naturally going to want to buy this new speaker because I can play my iTunes, I can use iMessaging, all that stuff that I can't do with Alexa. But I also don't want to lose the smart assistant, Alexa, because it seems to be better than Siri. So my question is, will I be able to pair these speakers together somehow? I know the Echo Dot can pair wirelessly with other speakers, so I want to get the smart assistant, Alexa, but still be able to play my music at a better sound quality and use iMessage. Will I be able to do this? It's like having two girlfriends, one sexier, one sounds better. The other one smarter, has a better personality, and I'm just trying to get them in bed together. You know what I mean, Brian? Love the show. Can't wait to hear what you guys think. Go Warriors.
Yeah.
As if I have experience in that area. Scott, what do you think? I mean, yeah, sure. Isn't it always the dream for us to have the best of both worlds from the two top devices that we love? I feel like it's always a dream for us.
I want to climb into bed with all the smart speakers at once.
We can arrange that. I mean, we can do a
Yes.
photo shoot. It could be awkward, but it could be amazing at the same time.
I don't think that you can count on the Echo ecosystem syncing and working with this smart speaker.
Absolutely.
I don't think there's any way.
Yeah,
That's
There
not
isn't.
part of the game plan.
And
But I do think there's a chance. It's a question that all of these devices do have, is that we're going to start maybe having more than one of them in our home. How do you deal with that? What can you set up some to do some things and some to do others? Do these companies start acknowledging that? It's different than when you have a phone and you pick one phone. They're priced so that you could easily have multiple devices in your home. And it's like all of these companies don't really want to think about that, but they're going to have to. And I think it would be really smart to come up with a solution that acknowledges that.
the one company that's trying to do this, I don't know if you recall Andy Rubin. He released the Essential Phone, which is kind of their answer to the phones, but he also announced the Essential Home, which is kind of their smart speaker home assistant. They didn't show it off. It's only in renders, but their goal, or really their dream, he said, like, we want this to be platform agnostic. We want it to be able to run Siri. We want it to run Alexa. We want it to run Google's assistant. But when you say that out loud and you realize, wait, you have to make deals with these three groups in order to run their assistants on your hardware, it just doesn't seem realistic based on how, in the history of time, how these companies who have built these platforms to really be an ecosystem that doesn't necessarily play friendly with others, for that to actually happen, I just don't see it. I'm not trying to be it's not that I'm not optimistic, but I just don't see something like that happening.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I got to talk with Essential's president a little bit, Nicola Damasi. Yeah, exactly that. The strategy that they're laying out is they want to go. It's like Essential wants to be the Android of smart home and accessories. That these are going to be open source, but then they acknowledge that not everyone's going to play nicely with them. I do think that there's a chance that two of the three will play nicely.
Yeah,
because definitely. Alexa is actually really open. Alexa generally plays nicely with everyone, so I think that will probably be fine. And considering Andy Rubin's relationship, and they're using an Android phone, I would think that they're going to develop some way to fold in Google Assistant. But then it's Siri as the outlier, and Apple. I think it's the one they're probably referring to. I mean, I also feel like, you know, the idea that they were pitching was like they kept calling it choreographing the home, which maybe sounds like a way to dance around that.
How about some spirit fingers?
Can
Maybe
you
spirit
really
fingers?
fold them in? Yeah, or is it like a Logitech Harmony? Are you like developing scripts that begin to learn how to deal with handing off things to other services that aren't really integrated? I don't know if that's the right analogy, but I kind of feel like that might be what they're trying to do. But they're also trying to become another player in the game.
Totally.
Like, they're gonna have their own assistant, and they're gonna want to be like the one that you choose. So it's a lot of things.
It is. You know, for our. Hey, we just want to throw in a guitar riff just to give you some of that background music. Autoplay, which will be addressed by Mac OS High Sierra. All right, let's. So to answer the question to our caller, I mean, you can hold both of them in your arms in the bed at the same time, but we don't expect. I highly don't expect Apple to be working with, you know, being able to talk to those anytime soon like that. It's just not in Apple's DNA.
We got to try to make a video where we put them next to each other and try to get them to talk to each other somehow, like trigger their words so that they say things that trigger the other one. It'll be amazing. I'm gonna try to figure that out. Okay.
I'll let you handle that, Beach.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna put the next call. Here we go.
Hey Brian, my name is Johnny from Washington D.C. I love the show. I'm actually a past contestant winner, so that's thanks for the awesome gift on that.
Woo!
So WWDC was this week, and I'm a little confused as to what Apple has created that's innovative. Because from what I see, there's actually nothing new that they've presented. For example, the new App Store, they didn't have to create. No one told them to create a new App Store. That's not innovation. Let's see, Apple Pay. They created a Venmo app. I don't understand what's so different about that. I mean, it's basically the same thing as Venmo. Let's see, Safari will block autoplay videos. That should have been done from the very beginning. That is a security patch, not an innovation. I don't understand what Apple has shown this year to be innovative. It's quite frankly, in my opinion, this is probably one of Apple's worst WWDCs yet. The only thing that, in my opinion, might have some innovation to it is the new live photo features. The software capability to create, like, for example, the seamless loop and some of the other effects, those definitely took much effort and from a software standpoint. So in that aspect, yes, I do agree. They did probably have some innovation, put in some good money in investing into that. But everything else, there's nothing impressive. So I honestly, if this is what the new iOS is bringing, I'm a little scared as to what the new iPhone is going to look like. I hope that they seriously step up their game. This is Apple's, key, landmark iPhone yet. So they need to bring something that is going to outshine and outpace this past WWDC. Thanks for listening out.
It's long. That was long. He was letting it all go on us.
Yeah.
He was just letting it all roll, but that's okay. Look, we'll see what happens. That's the thing. To me, it's also kind of weird that we're giving Apple the benefit of the doubt to say, like, hey, maybe they'll show us something more with Siri at the iPhone event, which they might, but really they should have done it at WWDC. So I'm just going to wait until then. But man, if we don't hear about how it's changed or evolved or really is, at least leveled up to a point where it can at least hold its ground in certain ways or maybe do unique things, it just feels like Siri is one, the stepchild that we're just going to keep on beating up on when everyone else is doing big things.
Did Scott drop off again?
No, I'm here.
Oh,
I'm just like quietly listening. I think they've done a few things that were innovative that are useful. I think ARKit is actually really useful for I think developers are already excited about that. because I don't know if there are that many toolkits that people can jump in right now and really develop AR apps with the way that I think Apple is enabling it.
Yeah.
But I think that was nice. I don't think there's that much more. And that brings up the point. I think innovation of the OS was surprisingly not there. You know, like, except for iPad.
Exactly.
I agree. I was very surprised that iOS 11, for the big supposed 10th anniversary thing that we think is going to happen with the iPhone, you know, and maybe a huge iPhone revamp in the fall. Well, this didn't really seem like this did not suggest that.
Yeah, yeah. Even like you said, even the suggestion of it, right? It again, we'll see maybe because of specific hardware features they'll show us more, but the basic suggestion of it being, you know, a big new revamp. Even, you know, I'm not the type of person that needs to ask for a complete facelift, but if it is this 10th anniversary phone, you want it to feel like that's it. But we didn't get any of that.
No.
All right, next call.
All right. We got a couple more.
Hey guys, this is Blair in West Hollywood. You are able to listen to YouTube with your browser and phone closed on your phone. It's called YouTube Red. You have to pay $10. You guys probably both got free for a month or 3 months, and just forgot that was what it is. And why is it that YouTube can play it faster on the computer, but you aren't allowed to change the speed on the phone or the iPad? Thanks.
The more you know.
Yeah. But I'm not going to pay $10.
I'm not going to pay. Would you pay $10, Scott, to just so you could hear the audio in the background on your YouTube videos?
With your phone turned off or the screen off?
So I tried out YouTube Red as a trial, and now I'm paying for it. So the answer is yes, but accidentally.
Okay.
So what's the content on YouTube? Is it just because you like not getting ads, basically, and it just helps your experience?
I got a free trial for YouTube Red, and I tried it out, and I was curious. But I'm not really into, like, you know, unique YouTube content, and ads I can deal with on YouTube. I'm not tremendously bothered. No, it was really just something I wanted to try.
Yeah.
And now, but I would not want to add that as yet another thing I'm paying for.
Are you personally paying for an Apple Music subscription? I tried the trial, but I never decided to get on board. I heard there was a lot of really flack about the Planet of the Apps show that just released on Apple Music. They're just saying like it's a really drab attempt at a Shark Tank without being anywhere nearly remotely as interesting.
So I'm paying for Apple Music, and now I'm also paying for Basically, I need to stop paying for all these music services. I'm also paying for Spotify, and a lot of it is to have things to test on different devices.
Exactly.
To do, but I've got to pick one. The problem now is Apple Music. I'm worried about how it has glommed into my existing cloud music library. And I know people have had problems in the past when you deactivated it might shred part of it.
Get rid of some of your music, right? It might ruin some of your own library somehow. Like associate those with the cloud.
That's why I've always been. That's why I've never wanted to do it after I had a bad experience with iTunes Match.
That's scary. Yeah.
Mine's all glommed, and I don't know where my original music library is. It's like on some server I haven't plugged in for a while. So it's all like in the cloud. I've developed some parasitic, you know, it's got some symbiotic relationship that I feel like I don't know what to do with this. I've walked down a road that I feel like I should just try it, pull it out, and then I think it's gonna like rip the brainstem out of my music collection.
That's scary.
And then I'm gonna have to start all over, and I'll cry.
Well, that's exactly where you're at now, right? Because you kind of invested in, and now you're like, okay, where do I go from here? I can't really go back. I can't really go full forward, but you're in that tweener spot right now. You're in the tweener spot.
Oh, and by the way, why aren't they addressing that more? I would like Apple to talk about that weird relationship with music, which never, you know, I feel like we deal with, but they haven't tried upgrading and dealing with. And that makes me think, like, I'm not a huge fan of the Apple Music app at all in terms of its layout. And to address what that guy said about, or maybe it was before that, about the App Store, I do not like the new App Store design.
I was turned off by it immediately. You can't, the first thing you look at is just a single icon of a single app now?
It's less discovery. And
totally.
They suggested there's stories and there will be articles, and I don't really need that at all. Yeah, I need ways to compare collections, and you want to look at charts, and it just seems, yeah, it seems way too presumptively curating. Like,
Yep.
oh, this is the one app you need today.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need apps every day. It's not a daily. I'm not going to look there every day for like today's app fix.
Well, you know how you were talking about, oh, I don't really like how the aesthetic of the Apple Music app. It really feels and looks like that they're trying to get that aesthetic across the board, not only in the App Store, but even the Messages app kind of has a little bit of Apple Music aesthetic in iOS 11. It's kind of interesting, some of the decisions that they're taking and making, but I'm completely I'm not even personally a developer, just as a consumer who wants to discover more content. I hate how the new App Store looks like. And as a developer, you've got to hate that too.
I think it's going to be painful. And I really don't get the daily thing, the today view, because with music, it makes sense. If you're a music subscriber, you want new things every day to have in your ears, that you're paying for all this free content that you're paying for it. But I mean, it's, you get to try it all. You don't get to try all apps. It's not like you have a key to every app in the kingdom. And so daily discovery of apps just seems like a bizarre use case that they would focus on.
Maybe this is what the show Planet of the Apps is about, for discovering new apps. That's their answer to redesigning the App Store.
What app are you using today? Like, I don't wake up every morning going like, time to try a new app.
Exactly. I've never. It's all about the buzz or what you hear. All right. Do you have we have one more call?
There's one more. Yeah.
All right. Let's get to it.
Hey, Brian. Hey, Steven. Really great show. Great job you both are doing. This is Pritam here. I'm calling from Fremont, California. So usually I tend to watch your show live, but if not, I watch it late at night. So thanks for the show and good informative stuff. Now, coming on to the question. So, there's been a lot of talk about Apple offering its own video streaming service similar to, let's say, Netflix, Hulu, and all that with the live TV. It's a funny thing that the Apple TV came out in September 2015, and it's been 2 years almost, and still they haven't given any service. What's up with that? I mean, I just wanted to kind of understand the thoughts going behind. Why is that, people like AT&T, DirecTV Now, Sling TV, PlayStation View, Hulu Live TV, and there's so many subscription services now. Everyone's doing it. What is Apple up to? Why is that they're lagging behind? Just wanted to know your thoughts and have a good discussion on this. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, thanks so much for the call.
Hey, Brian. Hey, Steve.
Sorry. Thanks so much for the call. We've talked about this a bunch on our show earlier in past episodes of just how, there were many reports about how Apple, who thinks they're still Apple, walked in the room with executives from the content providers, the network, the cable operators, and they want their own terms. They do have a large user install base, but the prices that they were asking or what they wanted, right? They want it their way. They don't want it. They don't want to take a group of maybe 20 or 30 channels. They want maybe 10 of the best channels. They want to control all the terms, and it's not going to happen that way. And we've complained about it I feel like I've complained about it for at least over a year and a half.
Yeah, we've been talking about this a long time.
Just the fact that they couldn't get it done. Every 6 months that went by, you saw a new player enter into the market to have their own service. And now, even if you look at the Apple TV interface, they have this Watch app, or the TV app. I can't remember what they called it. I remember it was like confusing to me, but they have this app that now kind of curates the streaming services, and those of the ones that are partners are kind of all integrated in this single app where you can watch TV shows, but it doesn't include things like Netflix or Amazon Video. It's just the partners that they have. It was almost, to me, a cop-out of the fact that they were not going to do a TV service. I don't expect that we see one from them now. Maybe they'll surprise us, but there are no indications that they've gone back to the table to even do anything like this. And to me, it's a little bit of the reason why we don't see it today is kind of more like Apple's hubris gets in the way when it has to deal with other companies. And it's kind of in their DNA, unfortunately. Scott, do you have any take on that?
Yeah, they did not address Apple TV much at all at this. And I feel like that was something that we expected. It was like the Amazon announcement was the main thing, and then they kind of wrapped it up and moved on. Yeah, and it's like, okay, we knew that would happen. But I agree. Like, I still use Fan TV, or have used, that was my Discovery app. And I always felt like their TV app was trying to be like that, to go cross-platform. And it doesn't even hook in everything the way that I'd still like it to. And then I totally agree. If they're not going to be making their own TV streaming package, they should be integrating other people's TV streaming packages in Apple TV in a way that allows you to pick one and bring it to the forefront. You know, like you should be able to pick Sling or something else and make it your instant on TV and build an interface around that. It's very strange. I feel like I don't really understand where that's going, and they're not really talking about app development much. I feel like you're not hearing anymore about other types of apps
for the TV
which
platform.
is weird because it's a pretty powerful box, and why is nothing happening?
Yeah, again, you know, when we talk about are they confused, are they spread too thin? I don't know where the focus on that product is either. You know, everyone's like, just give me a 4K Apple TV. Look, that's the most basic thing that they could do. That's just easy for them to do. But then when we're talking about how is the platform evolving? What are they doing with the TV service? Look, I have a PlayStation View. I love it, but that's what I use as my TV streaming service. I don't know if there's ever going to be a reason for me to really switch over to Apple One, but so many people are now invested in these other TV streaming services. Well, if they even get back in there, what are they going to do? And then, like you mentioned, the whole app development, WWDC, they spent 2 minutes on just saying Amazon is coming to Apple TV, and that was all. That was literally it. That's crazy.
And they haven't tried. They're certainly not keeping up with what everybody else is doing, and they're definitely not going to the next level with where it could be. I do think for a brief time, when the revamped Apple TV came out, it was introducing a few new ideas, like the ability to back up and hear what somebody said, or you know, a couple of other functions like that. But yeah, now you know, what is it doing to advance and rethink the TV? It's not.
Yeah. It's not. That's just the bottom line. It's not. So, you know what? Before we leave, Scott, do you have maybe, I don't want to put a number on it, but what was your overall feeling about WWDC as a whole? You know, thumbs up, thumbs middle, thumbs down. Where do you stand with all of that?
More thumbs up.
Yeah, me too.
Because I think that, you know, look, there are many years we kept saying, why are there no new products, or why are they not talking about this? And they did a lot in this show, but I'm just, you know, it's skepticism about where all these things are going to go and how big any one of them is going to be. Like, they did have their home speaker. We just don't know anything more about it. We, you know, they dipped into AR and VR big time, but we just don't know how transformative either one will be for them. And they updated the iPad. You know, there's all these areas that we've been talking about, like, will they do it? So in that sense, a lot of bases were covered. But the reason why I'm feeling, you know, it's just like, are you feeling it? Like, as you're watching it, you know when something resonates with you.
Totally.
And you go, that's awesome. And there weren't really many moments like that. And so that's the part where you go, well, was it just going too fast, or just, you know, and you wonder why if it was a bigger thing, why wouldn't they emphasize it more? So I just feel like you don't step away having been inspired in a lot of different directions. And that's a big part of what a developer conference should be too, because you're talking to developers. You're meant to be inspiring developers. This is a pitch. You know, you're saying it's tools, but it's also a pitch. And I think that there wasn't enough of that big, bold, inspirational push.
All right. Oh, my voice just cracked. Did you hear that?
That means it's time for the podcast to end.
Holy cow. I hope people still listen to us all the way through, but they completely ignored that fact. All right, Scott, thanks. Dude!
I'm surprised my voice is shot.
You're the one that flew in on a red eye and just got home back on the East Coast, and I'm the one whose voice is cracking.
I may or may not just be wearing boxer shorts.
Let's you can keep the camera tilted up. I really appreciate that.
But okay. But the San Jose was fun. I got to have delicious pho thanks to recommendation from Lynn Law.
Yes,
nice.
And that was just a comment you want to throw in there before we end the show, right?
That was just a comment I wanted to say. I don't know why I'm plugging a bowl of noodle soup.
Stream of consciousness just coming out at the end of the show.
But I'm just feeling like exactly that. It was nice to be there. I was exhausted. Maybe that's why my voice didn't fall apart.
Well, Scott, hey, thanks so much for everything. We love it when you come back in right after these big keynotes. We know you're a busy guy. So thank you for all your work and your insight, and we appreciate it, okay?
Hey, thank you guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right, so that's going to wrap it up for this week's show. Again, you guys and gals can always call us for the Apple Byte Extra Crunchy, 1-800-616-2638. I know we didn't get to hear Steven's smooth voice that much today.
It's all good.
Y'all good in the hood?
I was happy to sit back and just listen to you guys.
All right, that's going to do it for this week. We'll see you guys next time. Be safe. Peace.